Welcome to another edition of The Baseline. I'm Nick McCarville, and at the Australian Open this year, we're crunching the numbers like never before. Dr. Marco Reed, we're through with round one. Who were our clutch performers?
In the men's game, we had Rafael Nadal featuring at the top of the list, and then Radek Stefanik closely followed at number 2.
All right, and what about for the women?
Svetlana Kuznetsova, a long way ahead of number 2, Bouchard.
All right, but she dropped off a little bit in the second round, which could mean danger for her moving forward.
Yeah, the scoreline wouldn't suggest as much, but we certainly saw her drop 50 percentage points on that clutch performance across both serve and return.
Which is going to be dangerous. She takes on Jelena Jankovic in the third round. What did Rafa do that was clutch in that first round win?
Particularly compelling for Rafa, not so much serve, but definitely his return game, lifted in those key moments of the match.
So we're talking about clutch there in the first round, but what about who's hitting the biggest forehand?
In the men's game, we have Nick Kyrgios at number 2, closely followed by Fernando Verdasco.
All right, and what about the women?
Women sit 10% under the men in terms of the amount of ball speed they can create. We have Stosur at number 1 and Van der Wey at number 2.
Okay, so let's talk about that Stosur forehand. Let's lay her over against the Verdasco forehand. What's she doing that really allows her to hit such a big forehand?
Two things really stand out with Sam's forehand. One is her ability to use the entire chain from the ground right the way through to the racket. But most particularly, and it's unique to Sam and the top 5, we see her really generating a large amount of speed off internal rotation of the upper arm.
Yeah, you can see that arm really snap through it on that forehand, gives her all that power. Now on the women's side, Venus Williams hits the biggest backhand, but an interesting theme comes up on the big backhand for the men.
Yeah, look, amongst Venus's counterparts in the women's game, they're all double-handers. In the men's game, however, the top 4 highest ball speeds on the backhand over round 1 were actually single-handed backhand players. Among them, Thiem and Wawrinka. Whether or not that suggests we've got a renaissance of the single-handed backhand coming our way remains to be seen.
Yeah, absolutely interesting to see all those one-handed backhands atop the leaderboard. Let's talk about work rate in the first round and who is working the hardest to earn those points. We saw Lesia Sarenko take Angie Kerber, the world number 1, 3 sets. She didn't come through, but an Aussie, a young kid, he was working the hardest and got rewarded for it in the first round, right?
And look, there you're referring to Alex de Minaur, the young Australian, the teenager, number 1 ranked across speed of movement on court as well as work rate.
But we saw de Minaur win that first round in 5 sets, but then kind of drop off a cliff, losing in 3 sets today, whereas Stan Wawrinka won in 5 sets in his first round and then followed that up with a 3-set win today.
Absolutely, and I think that talks to why it's so rare for us to see teenagers feature so highly amongst those physicality metrics. Very difficult to sustain that level of intensity across multiple rounds.
Yeah, he's got some work to do. Thank you, Dr. Reed, and thank you, everyone. Join us again tomorrow for another edition of The Baseline.